Welcome to the setting up video for this range of hydrogen-oxygen machines. It's highly suggested that you read thoroughly the user manual. So this manual has a lot of really fantastic information and will answer a lot of questions. But this video will give you the basics to get up and running as quickly as possible and then get all the benefits that you're looking for. So if we turn the machine around and have a look at the back, we can see that we have a few things down the bottom here. We have the physical power on and off switch. We have where the power cable plugs into, and we have the drainage tube here, which we'll talk about later. So the very first thing to do is to plug the power in and switch it on. So I've plugged the machine in to the wall socket with the power cable supplied, turned it back around, but I haven't actually switched the machine on with that on-off button or switch at the back. And before I do that, I'm just going to let you know that this machine has voice activation. So what that means, okay, is that whenever you press a button or there's an error message, there'll be a voice that actually verbalizes that. And this is sometimes very helpful for people who are visually impaired, but it is something you can switch off. So when I switch the machine on, because there's no water in the tank, there's going to be an error message that comes up. There will also be a bleeping sound, which goes along with the error message. And there will also be a voice that's telling me that there's low water or not enough water in the tank. And then what I'll do is I'll straight away switch that voice off so that you can hear me talking. So let's have a go.
Hello. What to use? Hydrogen and oxygen healthcare machine. Please read the operation manual carefully before you start. Understand the precautions for correct use. Water shortage reminder. Check the water tank and add some to find water.
So what we have is an error message, E01, and on the side of the machine here, you can look that up and it will tell you that there's not enough water in the machine. We've also got the bleeping sound that tells you that there's an error. And we've also got a little flashing icon here that's telling you, yes. So I've just turned off the voice. So the voice will sometimes be something that once you know what you're doing, you can just have that switched off and the machine will just have the little bleeps to tell you when something is happening. So the very first thing to do is to put water in the tank. But before we do that, we just need to make sure that the water that we're using is pure enough. So the water that you need to use with these machines is distilled water, which we have in here, or you can use something called deionized water, which is in here. And sometimes you might find it called purified water. Now, when it comes to buying distilled water, there are variations in the quality, and we need to make sure that the purity has a reading with a TDS meter like this of 0 or 1. Now, on our website, we do have a recommended place which sells water, which is always very good, and it's always tested at 0 or 1. But if you go onto the internet and decide to buy something and that's a bit cheaper maybe, you can test it and you can just know for absolute certain whether that water is good enough. So what I've done is I've taken some of the distilled water from here and I put it into a glass, and we put one of these readers into every machine so that you can test your water. So it's just simply taking the cap off, pressing the button to switch it on, and then you just place it in the water, give it a little bit of a stir, and then pause. And you may not be able to see that on the camera, but it's coming up with a reading of 1. Now, if I lock and hold that reading, you should be able to see maybe that there's a reading of 1. And that means that this is pure enough. So a 0 or 1 is the ideal. Anything higher than that, the machine will accept it, but it's not good for the machine to have water which is a bit any higher than that. So So that's the first thing you do. Check that the water is pure enough. And if it isn't, then you need to find something that is. And the purity of the water is the most important thing for helping the longevity and also the performance of your machine in terms of the purity of the gas. So if you put unclean water in, it's going to cause potential aging of the machine, and you'll find that the hydrogen and oxygen gas that's produced will not be as clean. So we fill up the tank by going to the top of the machine, and there's this little panel here and a little bit that says open, and you can just put your finger underneath and just take that panel off. And then you'll see here the screw cap where you can just unscrew it by turning it anti-clockwise. And what's underneath that is a plug. Now this plug, when you take it out, which is here, this is just to make the unit watertight. You don't actually need this when you're running the machine day to day. So this is just for traveling. So put that somewhere safe. And if you're taking your machine to another venue or a moving house or just taking it somewhere, then you can put the plug back in, and it just makes the unit airtight and watertight. But generally speaking, once that's taken out, you don't really need it again. And then what you'll do is you fill up the water in here. So when you're filling the water tank up, there's a little indicator here on the side, so you can see how much water is generally in the tank. So there's a minimum, and what you'll find is when the machine is running, the water will gradually go down as you're using that water to make hydrogen. And when it reaches the minimum, it will actually tell you, there will be an alarm that comes up and tells you that there's not enough water. Uh, and what we want to do ideally is keep it towards the maximum, but you don't want to overfill it. If you overfill the machine, it doesn't operate as efficiently, and in some cases will actually tell you to empty some of the water out. So my advice is fill it to roughly a maximum, and if you're really interested in the purity of the gas and the efficiency of the machine and making sure that the longevity is at its maximum, then I would suggest that you wait until it's maybe halfway and then top it back up again. Don't wait for the machine to go all the way down to minimum before topping it back up with water. So I've filled it up with water, and you can see that the error message has disappeared and the little red error message sign and also a little icon has disappeared. And before we put the cap back on, which is here, there is something in your accessories, which is a filter. So you want to take the filter, place that into the water tank, and then you can put the cap on. And now we've successfully switched the machine on. We have tested the water. We have filled up the water tank, put the filter in, and we're ready for the next stage. So the next stage in the setting up is to look at the front of the machine, and there's a little clear panel which you can pop out, and this is known as a humidification cup. And essentially we fill that with water, and you may not be able to see it clearly on the video, but there is a maximum water line, and you want to have it, there's a minimum line and then a maximum line. So essentially you want it to be between the two. And you fill that up basically by taking the little stopper out there, and there's a little hole where you can fill up with distilled water. And once you've got that filled up to either the maximum level or somewhere between that minimum and maximum, you then just slot it back in. And then there's just one more step before you're ready to turn on and use the machine. So in the accessories that come with the machine, you will have a bit of white tubing, which is this, and you'll have a green cylinder, which is this. And this is known as a water trap. So whenever you're using a hydrogen or an oxygen machine, or in this case, a combination of the two, you can often get condensation that accumulates in the cannula. And this happens more so if the temperature in the room is very hot or very cold, and there's more kind of condensation that comes with that. Also with very long sessions, and also with the very powerful machines, particularly if they are 1,500 milliliters per minute output or higher. Um, and so this is designed to catch a lot of the condensation. And essentially, what we do is we just plug it into the side there. And this will fill up very gradually with water. And after each session, any water that's in there, even if it's just a little trickle, just empty it each time. Now, when you empty it, you just pull it out, and it's just something where it twists. You can pull the top bit off, and then you can empty it, and then you can just let it twist and lock back in, and just push it straight back in. And the tube that's here is simply to attach the output to this particular water trap. And on the top of here, you can see there's a little rubbery protection nozzle thing. So we just take that off. And you don't need that. Once that's taken off, you can disregard that because it does have its own cap if you need to put when you're not using it. So all I'm going to do is take the white tubing and just plug it into the output. So that's where the gas is coming out of the machine. And then I take the other side, and the little kind of nozzle, which is closest to the machine, is where you plug that into. And there we go. And so the machine is ready to go now. So we're ready to plug in a cannula to here and then switch it all on and watch it operating. So we're going to do that next. So what I've done is I've taken the nasal cannula that comes with the machine, and one end of that has got the bit that goes into the nostrils, which looks, if I show you like that, it's got the little prongs here that go into the nostrils. And what you might notice is that there's also a little flap, and that flap points down towards the lips. So that would be upside down. So what you do is you would put the two prongs into your nostrils, and then these would wrap around the ears, and the little flap would be pointing down. So that would be the correct way to apply that. And then if we just have a look at the screen here, so the default time is 30 minutes. But if we work our way along the different uh, options that we've got, first of all, you've got the mode. Now, the mode is to do with the power. Now, on this particular machine, we can have, as with most of these machines, different levels of flow rate or output. And if I switch the voice back on, when I press this, it will tell you, and it will indicate here on the screen what your flow rate is. So if I press it, flow rate 900, and I press it again, flow rate 1.5, flow rate. So this has a flow rate that you could choose between 450 to 900 up to 1,500 or 1.5 liters per minute. So you basically select that with that particular thing there. So I'm just going to put it onto the most powerful one. Flow rate 1.5. Then the next one is the time, and you can change that all the way up to 8 hours. So 4, 5, 1, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hour. And then it comes back to 30. This is where you obviously switch the voice off and on. This is something I'm going to show you in a moment, which is, oh, sorry, I started the machine running. So I was going to show you that this one is the rinse button, and that's actually just for emptying the machine. So when the machine is operating, you'll know that it's working because you'll get bubbling in this humidification cup, and you can check that everything's coming out through the cannula by using a glass of water. So I've got some water here, and if you just put the cannula into the water, you should see bubbles coming out into the water. So hopefully you can see that occurring in the water. So that's how we know that the machine is operating. And if I change the
flow rate,
you might notice that the bubbling will change to reflect the power output of the machine. So when you're on 1,500, there's obviously more gas coming into the water. And when you're on a lower output, then the bubbles will usually be a little bit less. But the main thing is that if you've got bubbles coming into the water and you've got bubbles here, then you know that the machine is working. So with the machines, the machine will run for the duration that you've set it for, and then it will switch itself off. And if you want to stop it early, you just use the same button that you started it with,
stop running.
and you can stop at any time. So I've turned the machine around to show you how you can drain water out of the machine. Now, if you've overfilled the machine and you need to drain just a little bit out, you can use this process. Or if you need to completely empty the tank for any reason, then it's the same process as well. And the manual and the manufacturer suggests that you replace the water roughly every 2 weeks. Now, it might also depend on how intensely you're using the machine. Someone who's using the machine quite aggressively, maybe using it for more than 3 or 4 hours a day on a daily basis, would certainly need to change the water every couple of weeks. But if you're using the machine less than that, you may find that changing it every 3 or 4 weeks is adequate for your needs. So what I've got is a jug. And what we do is this little bit here, you can pull and just extend out the drainage tube. And there's a little stopper. And when you take that stopper out, there might be a bit of water that comes out, but generally nothing's going to come out until you press the rinse button on the front of the machine. And what you need to do is hold that button for about 3 seconds. So I'm just going to put the voice back on.
3, 10, minute. Voice off. Voice on. Rinse function. Rinse is starting.
So there we go. The water will come out until you press that rinse button again.
Rinse is finished.
And then you can put that stopper back in and then just push that out the way. And it's very straightforward. So it's a really good drainage system with this machine.